Role-playing games, or RPGs, are group-oriented games based on storytelling and can include either tabletop role-playing games, TTRPGs, or live-action role-playing, LARP. Both kinds of games have incorporated the Seelie and Unseelie courts in different ways and to different extents, as games expanded to include more variety and began to draw on folklore for inspiration. Before we dive into the ways that some of these games have incorporated the courts, we must perforce begin with a basic outline of what these games are and what they can involve to establish the groundwork that the more detailed material is growing from. As there are many possible variations within these games, we are focusing, as usual, on the broader strokes, and on the specific games which include the courts in some fashion. Modern role-playing began as such with Dungeons and Dragons, which was founded in 1974 and followed up with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in 1978. The 1980s saw an explosion in RPGs, and in 1987 the Forgotten Realms setting was added to D&D, expanding into an area where the Fae and courts were featured in a wider way. This would be followed in 1995 by a LARP through White Wolf Publishing called Changeling the Dreaming, in which the courts were a pivotal aspect of the game. These represent the main games that feature the fairy courts, and which are popular enough to have had a noticeable effect on wider belief. These games may be set in fantasy worlds or in alternate versions of Earth, but have long drawn on older folklore and concepts as sources to build from. RPGs are usually run by one or two people who take the role of storyteller or dungeon master. These people create the storylines for the players to engage with, which are often quest-based. Storytellers / dungeon masters may also either take on or narrate the roles of non-playable characters, NPCs. These are the characters within the story that the players encounter and interact with as they go through their adventure, and can include enemies that are being fought against, allies, or neutral parties. Role-playing games generally allow a person to create a playable character, which can be human or may be of a variety of other types of beings, depending on the game system, including in some games, different kinds of fairies. Each character will also have specific skill sets and roles, things like druid, paladin, or warlock for example, as well as a backstory which can be as simple or complex as the player wants. Character stats like strength, intelligence, charisma, agility, and wisdom are based on dice rolls and affected by the species the person has chosen, with some species having bonuses for specific stats. This all allows for a great deal of personalization of characters by players and creates a sense of ownership over the character, as well as an inherent connection between player and character. This is even truer with people who live action roleplay, as they are embodying their character in improv style interactions with other players. One aspect of gaming which is pertinent to understanding how the Fae folk and fairy courts appear and act is the moral alignment system that most RPGs use. This system broadly divides morality into 9 categories, based on 2 sets of 3 groupings: good, neutral, and evil, and lawful, neutral, and chaotic. This results in 9 playable moral alignments: lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. Did it in one breath. Good characters choose the outcome that is best for the most people. Neutral characters what is best under the circumstances. Evil characters what is best for themselves. Lawful characters follow the letter of the law. Chaotic characters do whatever they decide in the moment, and neutral characters, as implied, are neutral between law and chaos. I'm definitely chaos. A lawful evil character, for example, would enforce and support laws which benefit themselves to the detriment or outright harm of others, while a lawful good character would follow the law for the greatest good. Fairies are often described through this system as chaotic neutral, because they are somewhat unpredictable and prone to valuing personal relationships over community, good, or self, evil. Through this lens, the Seelie court would be considered lawful good and the Unseelie lawful evil. Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons includes a wide array of playable worlds and characters which are under a constant system of expansion and revision. One aspect of this is a place called the Feywild, which functions as a world within the world of D&D and is based at least loosely on folklore about fairy. Within this concept are creatures called the Fey who exist in two courts, the Seelie and the Unseelie. The Seelie are the more prominent group and can act as both demigods within the game, or the court itself can be a playable setting, while the Unseelie are malicious and enjoy causing harm to anyone they can. The D&D Seelie court is ruled by Titania, while the Unseelie court is ruled by her sister, the Queen of Air and Darkness. Oberon is also named as King of the Seelie court, although he features less prominently, and it is the two queens who actually rule. Within gameplay, the Seelie are considered to be neutral or neutral good characters, while the Unseelie are chaotic neutral or chaotic evil, although both groups are considered unpredictable and have at least some chaotic behaviors. The Seelie court is highly restricted, accepting only its own members and those connected to it, while the Unseelie are open to anyone with any degree of Fey ancestry, creating courts which are not only morally opposed to each other, but also vastly different in how they approach other beings. The D&D versions of the two courts are designed around the functionality of gameplay, and are tailored to that setting with entirely fictional backstories. In this case, the Seelie court once had its own world which was destroyed by the dark magic of the Unseelie, creating the current state of things. The Seelie and Unseelie of D&D are more directly opposed to each other than what is found in folklore. In general, the Fey folk of D&D are thought of as beings from a different reality, and beings who are intrinsically connected to the natural world. The D&D understanding of the courts is also the basis for the Forgotten Realms understanding of them. The Forgotten Realms. The Seelie court in the Forgotten Realms is also called the Summer Court, and are the gods of the Fey folk. Ruled by Titania, they existed within an inner and outer court. Much of the structure and understanding of the Seelie court is built off of existing material in D&D, but tailored to the specific setting of the Forgotten Realms. As a pantheon of gods, the Seelie generally don't interact directly with this world, but may serve as patrons to players connected to a specific pantheon, as well as any Fey character. The Unseelie court may also be called the Glooming Court, and existed in opposition to the Seelie, ruled by Titania's sister, the Queen of Air and Darkness. While the Seelie exist as forces of good, the Unseelie are evil, and their actions are generally aimed at causing suffering. As with the wider D&D understanding, the Unseelie will take in anyone with any Fey blood, and are known to even accept monsters. Changeling, the Dreaming. The game which has possibly had the greatest effect on modern perceptions of the two courts is Changeling by White Wolf. A LARP Changeling allows players to create and embody characters who are members of one court or the other. The game is set in a human world where the supernatural is real and interactive, connected to or inhabited by beings, fairies, from a world called Arcadia. The game includes a variety of named fairy beings from folklore, and also includes the two Scottish fairy courts as universal concepts, although, as we will discuss, the courts are portrayed in a very different ways from what exists in folklore. In Changeling, the Fae originated in a world called Arcadia, or the Dreaming, and exist by absorbing the energy of human dreams or glamour. The nobility of the Fae, called the Sidhe, withdrew into Arcadia as regional thought in the human world began to weaken glamour and create something called banality, which injured the Fae. This withdrawal resulted in two different groups of Fae, the nobility and the commoners. Eventually, the combined weakening of glamour and rise of banality caused a break between realities and resulted in the commoner Fae creating a ritual that allowed them to take over a human body to live within the human world. This possession is what created changelings. This process involved a Fae soul taking over a human body and displacing the original soul, while simultaneously existing within the dreaming, creating a human embodied Fae. During the modern period of human history, dreams returned, and with them the She, who joined the commoner Fae in creating changelings to interact with the human world. During gameplay, a character must try to increase their glamour while avoiding banality as much as possible. Each changeling would be aligned with either the Seelie or Unseelie courts and would belong to a kith, which is effectively the specific type of fairy that the character is. Examples of kiths include puka, redcaps, she, or boggans. The court alignment and kith shape the character's personality and actions during gameplay. Gameplay emphasizes the complexity of court politics, with various noble houses a character can be affiliated with, which also affect the character's inner and outer courts, kingdoms, and assorted other groups. The backstory also emphasizes the tension between the She and the commoner Fae, as well as the power plays and struggles that are common between groups. While loosely based in folklore, the majority of changeling material is highly fictionalized and creative. While we can perhaps argue for some slight moral distinction between two groups in how they would approach humans, the differences between courts in the game is based on their philosophy of life. The Seelie court of Changeling is based on historic concepts around love and honor, including old codes of chivalry, while the Unseelie embrace passion and novelty. The Seelie consider the Unseelie crass and unpredictable, while the Unseelie view the Seelie as stodgy and honor-bound. The motto of the Seelie court is, "Love conquers all, death before dishonor, beauty is life, and never forget a debt." While the Unseelie motto is, "Change is good, glamour is free, honor is a lie, passion before duty." Historically, the two courts divided the rule of the year into summer and winter, and were open enemies. But after the entrance of changelings to the world and the need for both groups to fight against banality, they have, at least theoretically, made peace with each other. Currently, in-game reality, the Seelie court is the dominant power with the Unseelie reduced to a shadow court, but both exist as playable character options. Changeling the Lost. Following up on the Dreaming in 2007, White Wolf released Changeling the Lost, which featured playable characters who had once been human but were kidnapped by the Fae and changed, before escaping back to Earth, where they seek to avoid recapture and return to the Fae world. In contrast to the Dreaming's Fae-souled human-bodied characters, The Lost features characters who were fully human and changed by magic into something partially Fae. The changelings of The Lost are at odds with mortals, as they no longer properly belong to that world, but also with the full Fae who are responsible for their current state. The court system of The Lost is much more complex than what we find in The Dreaming. European and Western culturally based changelings belong to one of four seasonal courts: summer, fall, winter, or spring, while Eastern European and Slavic changelings have two courts, sun and moon, and Asia-based changelings have four courts based in the directions. Additionally, there is the Dawn and Dusk courts, as well as the Courtless. The second edition of the Player's Handbook expanded the directional courts from 4 to 5, added the 3 rose courts as well as 2 of creation. The courts in The Lost are groups that have come together, based in a shared interest or focused, and have made an agreement with the power their court is named after, so that that power will protect them from the full Fae. Gaming changed how some people interact with the concepts of fairy courts by allowing them to embody characters who were members of these groups. In the same way that urban fantasy changed how readers understood and engaged with this material, gaming was in many ways a paradigm shift, particularly for neo-pagans. RPGs, especially Changeling, had a strong impact as well on the Otherkin community, which predates these games but has since, in at least some demographics, incorporated terms from the games, including Kith, Kithane, and Arcadia. The Unseelie motto from Changeling has been repeated unironically within discussions as a genuine aspect of both belief and folklore. The D&D Feywild has also found a place within some modern pagan groups, who may also embrace the concepts around cold iron found within the game, indicating perhaps both the overlap between the gaming and pagan communities, as well as the way people outside cultures within living fairy beliefs are incorporating material from pop culture instead. The folklore that is espoused by some people now is rooted in 20th century gaming, but more often than not is assumed to be genuinely older cultural material, contributing to a growing widespread misunderstanding of the Scottish fairy courts. Want to go beyond D&D and into the actual folklore? Then we have the perfect book for you, The Fairy Courts by Morgan Daimler, who also provided the words for this video. The Fairy Courts is an in-depth exploration of its subject from the original Scottish to modern fiction, mapping out beliefs and how they have evolved. It covers the social structure of fairies, the history of the Scottish Seelie and Unseelie courts, fairy courts outside of Scotland, and it offers a look at how fairy courts are being adapted today in fiction and belief. The Seelie and Unseelie courts have become a staple in fiction and a common idea in pop culture, yet their origins and how they were and are understood in Scottish folklore have become obscure. The Fairy Courts discusses the history of belief as it is traced from the 1500s to today, concluding with a chapter about the ways that folk belief and antidotes show us how a human might survive in a fairy court. It's available from Moonbooks Publishing. Thank you so much for watching. A special thank you as always to our members. You too can become a member and gain early access to videos just like this one. Hit the join button for more information. Subscribe for weekly videos, ring the bell for notifications, and we will see you next time.